Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another exciting episode of the exclusive Rule Thirds podcast on RuleThirds.com, CinemaTalk. Today we have a very special first, and it just so happens to be our 15th episode. So, kind of a good coincidence, we are going to be doing our first ever CinemaTalk Debate. So, on that note, my name is Larry.
And I'm Sean.
Yes, and we have a very special guest as our third person. But first, we must go to the lobby. Sean, let us adjourn.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back from the lobby. Let's get this started. Along with me and Sean, we have a very special guest today to help us out with our debate. He is a fan of our website, and I have been very friendly with him over the last few years on screwattack.com. He is a G1, a very avid G1 at that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our friend Whitley to CinemaTalk. Whitley, how you doing?
Everybody, hi. And just to clarify, a little tiny detail, I might not be a G1 for much longer.
Huh.
Oh.
It's a long story. I'll explain in my next blog to everybody who follows me.
Okay.
But yeah, it's nice to be here, and I hope this goes well. I'm not exactly the best live debater, but hopefully we'll get something going here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting little experiment. So when we were first thinking about doing Cinema Talk, something that we always wanted to do were debates on different things. And when one person disagreed with another, we could just go on Cinema Talk and debate it and see how it went. We were originally going to do it with Max and Sean, but Sean kind of suggested this idea to me that Whitley come on to discuss a certain topic, and it actually worked out very well. So we're going to do this as our first debate. Now, the topic at hand is a very controversial plot twist that occurred during the film Iron Man 3, and that has been coded as the Mandarin Twist. Essentially, what happens
by the way, big spoilers for Iron Man 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, give him a warning, warning.
Yeah, big spoilers for Iron Man 3. I just want to put that out there.
Now
if you haven't already seen if you haven't already seen it, go see it, all right? Anyway, so the Mandarin Twist. It turns out the big villain of Iron Man 3, the Mandarin, the villain that was being built up throughout the entire movie, was all a fraud. He was just an actor, pretty much being paid to look like a fearsome villain. And there's a lot of different opinions going around about how that twist was handled, not only regarding the twist in the movie, but also Shane Black and his decision in it. And thankfully, we have two people here who happen to disagree about how that twist was handled.
Yes.
So we have
liked the twist.
Yes. Sean did.
Kind of mix on it, so that's actually the big surprise. I'm actually, on one hand, I don't like it. On the other hand, I understand where it's coming from.
Huh. This will be an interesting debate then, because I bet you'll agree with most of my points. Okay, well,
all right, let's just try it anyway. So clearly we have two different sides. I've read Whitley's blog about it. He actually wrote a blog about this twist, which you will all be able to read in the description
below. I meant to reread it right before recording. That was a while back when I read it.
But I think it might actually make it more interesting because it's more live and more unexpected.
Sure.
So you guys can debate it through. So that is our debate. I guess we should kind of lay down a question. Was the Mandarin Twist a good decision in Iron Man 3? I think that's the main question on our minds here. Even though this is going to be an open forum discussion between Sean and Whitley for most of it, I, Larry, will be here kind of being the moderator, kind of keeping things civil, and kind of keeping things from getting onto too long of a tangent. So, on that note, let us begin. That's a good question. Where should we begin?
I have some opening comments.
All right, yeah, let's just start with quick opening comments. So let's start with Sean.
Some, ground rules, I guess. The whole argument about whether or not the Mandarin Twist was good. A lot of people on the other side that hate it, pretty much their perspective is all from the comics, where the Mandarin is such a big villain of Iron Man. And they're like, it just was not done justice. There was so much potential, and they ruined it. It was a stupid twist because it wasn't the comics. We addressed this in a previous episode of Cinema Talk, that doesn't hold water. So I don't want that to be part of the argument, because source material doesn't matter. It's what this film wants to do with it. So I think our argument needs to be centered around why or why not it did not work in this film alone.
Right. That's a very good point.
So that's fair, Whitley? You would agree?
I mean, like, to be honest, I haven't really read... The last comic that I remember reading, like, seriously was this really bizarre DC comic where one character got killed and then came back and then was weak and then got killed. And I don't really... Like, I think the most poignant comment that actually stuck out in my mind was when Cassandra Cain freed Joker from Arkham and fought him. That's, like, the only comic that I really remember well.
So you're not from a comics background. You're mixed on the Mandarin based solely on the film. Okay.
Okay, that's good. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So I guess we should just I think this whole discussion revolves around the execution of it. It was the villain was built up a lot, and it just kind of was a very big twist. He was all a fraud.
Right. So I'm a big fan of twists in movies, just because it's a weird thing where I like feeling like the movie's smarter than me, that it got the better of me, that it knows what it's doing better. Like I underestimated it. That's always a fun feeling, because that means some more thought went into it than you were expecting. So with something like the Mandarin Twist, it was refreshing because it was so easy. Like, that's why I think it works so well. Like, I don't want to hit such a main point right away, but one of my major points why I like it is kind of a look at the comic book villain, right? It's an analysis of it, because the audience, why it's a twist, why everyone was shocked, is because we had seen all these superhero movies. They were building up the Mandarin like any other villain in any superhero movie. And so, like, oh man, big bad guy. Oh, there goes our hero. He's about to come face to face. And because it was such a shocking switch, it's just it was refreshing, and it was it made you think about how you watch superhero movies, because it seemed like you had assumed so quickly that was the villain, no questions asked. He was the bad guy. Doesn't that say something about the genre, about you, the audience? That's why I liked it, because it kind of made me think, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been so quick. So that's why I think it was smart.
The word you're looking for is subversion.
Okay, hold on. Subversion. Why am I not... Like, I know that word, but it's not...
Not on the top of your head.
Subversive. It takes your expectations and it turns them on your head.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, and I find that smart. Like, I respect that they did that. That's why I like twists in general, unless it's just really pointlessly, like there's nothing backing it up. But in this case, it's not like it's illogical or doesn't fit in the film. It all makes sense. Whether or not you like it or not, you can't really argue that it doesn't make sense. They explain everything. So that was just my justification of why I like twists in general, and it applies to this one. Made me feel like the filmmakers were smarter than me, which is kind of cool.
All right. What about you, Whitley? Why did you not like the twist?
A theory. I've actually been tinkering this theory for a while now, and I even introduced it on the Screw Attack forums, and people were a lot more receptive to it than I thought. Which is strange, because usually when I introduce theories there, I get into debates. So, I have a theory on plot twists. In film, particularly. I mean, it works for shows, it works for novels, mostly for film. It's almost like a litmus test. The next time you see a twist in a movie, ask yourself 2 questions. Number 1, does this twist make sense in the context of the greater story or world? And number 2, does this plot twist actually progress the story as a whole to a new level?
Okay, I can get behind that.
If the twist fulfills both criteria, it's a good twist. If not, it's an okay twist if it fulfills one of them, or a bad twist if it fulfills none.
Solid rule, but yeah, I can get behind that.
Same.
There are like obvious exceptions, and it doesn't necessarily mean the movie itself is good or bad. But I often hold like my standards here. It's like a twist that fulfills both of these criteria. The ending to Memento.
Larry, have you seen Memento?
Yes.
Okay, we're good.
Spoilers for Memento.
Yeah, I don't want that spoiled for anyone because I love
Yeah,
Memento.
spoilers for Memento. Here we go.
Ending to Memento fulfills both criteria.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
It's for a
I can get
movie
behind
that
that.
does not fulfill either of these, and I'm going to get some controversy for this, but the third act twist to Perfect Blue fulfills neither of them.
I haven't seen it.
Me neither.
Oh, well.
Oh, don't watch it. It's a terrible movie.
Okay.
But, it's like I was, as contrived as it is, I was behind parts of it, and then finally this just like threw everything out the window. And then as for movie examples that would fulfill one of these ideas, I know Larry would not agree with me, but Brave fulfills criteria number 2.
Which is what?
That it progresses the story as a whole.
I guess that's true.
Well,
it does lead to more plot points.
Oh, yeah, it does. It progresses it. I just don't think it progresses in the right direction.
Yeah, not in a
far
very
as
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting direction.
I think that's a very important aspect of the twist. Yes, it can be, yes, moving the story along is good. That's what every twist should do. It should change the way the story's going, so that way, it can progress. But if it's not going in a good direction, then why even change the direction at all?
Okay, so I have to ask, where does the Mandarin Twist fall on your test?
Test.
So, I think it fulfills number 2 and not number 1.
Interesting. Okay, so you think that it advances the story, but it isn't founded, or it doesn't make sense. Okay, why doesn't it make sense? I'm curious.
Me too.
Yes,
Even though I
it
haven't.
has to do with how it was presented. It's an issue of presentation, not so much idea. And in theory, it's a brilliant idea. You have this guy who is built up as this sort of great evil akin to Osama bin Laden. I think we can all agree.
Oh, well, yeah. They were going for
yeah,
that.
that was a very easy mirror to go for.
I mean, even in the story, that's what he was going for.
Yeah.
That's what Killian was going for, so.
And you finally come in, and I guess it could be a combination of shock and confusion. It just seems like it came too far out of left field, and you drop this character in favor of a TV actor for laughs.
Yes, but if you're going to hold that as not making sense, then you have to explain why the Mandarin is more interesting than the TV actor character, and that's something I will argue. Like, I'm not huge into the comics, but from what I've read, the Mandarin was pretty racist to start. For one,
I'm not saying that he isn't racist. I think that's
I don't think the later versions of him were, but I've heard from a bunch of like friends, people who knew that the first Mandarin design pretty racist.
Yeah.
So it's look. I mean, to be honest, like I guess it's along a similar vein that I find like how Ra's al Ghul was handled in Batman Begins. I mean, I'm not like a huge comic fan, so all I really know about Ra's al Ghul is based on the animated show.
Uh-huh.
And in there, he kind of comes off as a generic villain, just this guy who wants to, use the Lazarus Pit to become immortal.
Sure. So you think they made him more interesting by the twist in Batman Begins? Okay, but you don't think they did with Iron Man 3? Okay. Because, see, I'm at kind of the different side. I feel like what made the twist so interesting is kind of going back to what I was saying, like your expectations, is this was the... Hold on, give me like 2 seconds. Iron Man 2, Captain, Thor, Avengers. This was the 7th Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was like we were in this rhythm, especially because Iron Man 3, kind of at its peak, like it's made the most of any single Marvel film. Avengers. I mean, single as in single cast member. Okay, it made the most out of except the Avengers. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And now I missed my point. We're going back to what happened a few podcasts ago. I totally forgot what I was saying. Give me a second. Right, it was our 7th Marvel movie. We were in this rhythm. We knew what to expect, and the fact that we actually didn't was interesting. And the fact that we were expecting just another generic villain, and we got something different. So, sure, the Mandarin could be interesting in the comics, I don't know. But see, that's another thing I've heard, that he might be a formidable foe. You know, he definitely might be a great opponent to Iron Man, great. But character-wise, I haven't heard too many great things about him. So let's just go off that. What if we get a powerful enemy, but not necessarily like, what's the word? Deep. Yeah, not necessarily deep villain. Like, that's what we've been getting. That's the problem with Marvel movies. Their villains aren't very good.
Cough, cough, Thor 2.
Right,
cough,
we got
cough.
Loki. Loki's fun. And then I really liked the Winter Soldier. I think he was great.
The Winter Soldier is really a villain. I think he's an anti-hero.
Well, he's not an anti-hero until he will be in the next movie. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's a villain.
No, he was definitely a villain now. We can argue what anti-hero means later, but...
Alexander Pierce was more of a villain than him.
Well, yeah, they were both villains. But,
Yeah, I mean...
spoilers, Winter Soldier will become good, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway.
He should, yeah.
So that's the problem with the villains. So, 7th movie, we're sitting down like, okay, they're building up the Mandarin. It's like, okay, good build-up for sure. And then Iron Man, Tony was breaking into the... what's the word? Like, I guess house, like a mansion, a villa, I think is what it is.
You have to give credit to that scene. As dumb as I think it is in retrospect, the scene itself was actually really funny.
Yeah, I do like the scene. So he's breaking in, and you're like, okay, is he going to come face to face with his big enemy of the movie, like every other Marvel movie? And then they say no.
I do think that Trevor Slattery himself is below Ben Kingsley as an actor.
What?
I do think that.
I think he had so much fun with that role.
I think he did too, but I think that Kingsley deserved better than that.
Oh, really? I think that was great. I think they just approached him and said, you can be terrifying, this really bad guy, but then you get to have so much fun, just go all out, eccentric actor, and I think everyone involved loved what they were doing. Like, I just got a good vibe from that character. One of my favorite things in the movie is the end, where Trevor Slattery is being arrested, and the press are all around him taking photos, asking questions, and to him it's like stardom, and just the look on his face is so funny that he's like hit the big time.
And you're gonna love the one cut. I think it's
the
called.
one shot. Yeah, I saw it. It's great. All hail the king.
I mean, like, look, this is part of the reason why I'm divided on it, because I as much as I do take issue with how it was executed, as well as on a side note, I think that's also when the movie's story started to fall apart. I don't think that Killian was really that interesting a replacement.
Sure, I can see that.
Shortly, but as much as I do that, I will admit that I did find the twist funny, and I get what they're going for.
Yeah, like the thing about the villain trade-off is, honestly, I mean, I get we lost the Mandarin that they were building up. It was pretty intimidating and frightening, especially in our modern context, where that's a very real thing that could happen. You know, it happens. Maybe not like it's not as prevalent as like a decade ago.
Mandarin could be like building on. I think it's like building on two things. It's building on our 9/11 fears.
Yes, and that's even established in story. Like that's the kind of fear that Killian says he's tapping into.
Building on how the media can build up seemingly nothing.
Exactly.
Something really powerful. So I guess I loved seeing that part. It's just that I guess it also goes back to the whole idea of again, screen value with what Larry had been talking about last time.
But, see, here's what I think. In terms of screen value, like I was saying, we lost the Mandarin that was being built up. Pretty intimidating and all that. But in return, we got Killian, who I really like Guy Pearce. I think he's great. This character isn't interesting, necessarily, but he's having fun with it. He's interesting to watch. The combination of that and Trevor Slattery, who I think was hilarious, and just his interactions with Tony were gold.
Best line. Ole, 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 ole.
But yeah, see, I feel like the combination of those two made up for it. And if you add in just how much I loved the feeling of being tricked like that, I think it made up for it. So screen value, I think, is very prevalent because, I mean, I don't know if that's the right word. It's good to talk about here because the Mandarin did have presence. It did have a lot of screen value. Killian doesn't, but I think Slattery does. I think it makes up for it. I think it does make up for it.
I don't. I mean, like, I also think that, just as a side note, that Killian is a ripoff of Syndrome from the Avengers. Sorry, from the Incredibles.
Huh. That's an
If you stop and think about it, his plot is very similar to Syndrome's.
Well, he doesn't necessarily want to make everyone superheroes.
No, but he still wants to sell his own technology to other people and, have control over it.
Interesting angle, actually. I hadn't considered that.
And I also, I guess I wouldn't be upset if Killian were interesting.
Yeah, I can see that.
We talk about how the Mandarin, it wouldn't work in the context of that world. Can you explain to me how Killian breathing fire out of his mouth makes any more sense?
Well, the Mandarin does fit. Well, okay. That's something that we should definitely talk about. Like, the MCU is very tight. Like, they're very careful to make it all work together, because that's kind of its thing. X-Men movies have inconsistencies all over the place. MCU really wanted to make it all fit together as a coherent world. So, the 10 rings is what the Mandarin has. They are physical rings, one on each finger. They are magic. They give him crazy powers. That's something that you couldn't quite fit into the MCU. Like, you could say they're from Asgard, maybe, but that seems kind of forced and kind of weak. So the alternative is what they were going for, just a terrorist cell leader who manipulated the minds of the public and the press, and I felt like that was a great transition. Now, as for Killian breathing fire out of his mouth, I feel like there was only one shot. See, for me, that felt a little over the top, right? That scene where he's breathing fire. But then the way that, I know, give me like 5 seconds.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yes, but I know
dun,
the actor's name, Don Cheadle. The way Don Cheadle's response to it was so funny. They kind of acknowledged how silly it was that it was fine. Because we are talking about an Iron Man movie. Iron Man is the most kind of out there, surprisingly, like in terms of tone.
So he's like Spider-Man.
Yeah, kind of. What's funny is that he's the most grounded hero. Like he just has a suit, that's it. But his movies are by far the most out there in terms of tone.
I always think of him as a combination of Batman and Spider-Man.
Yeah. That's solid.
So I mean, like, I guess I'm also like another point as well. I'm not as terribly enthused, and I know this is gonna shock a lot of people who are listening, but with the exception of like Iron Man, the Avengers, and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, I'm not in love with the MCU.
Oh, Larry, you're still here. Okay.
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the critical reception, I don't normally agree with that. I mean, look, I usually can see where critics are coming from, but in terms, most of the time I find it's kind of switched around here. I think the ranking critically is pretty much in tune. Thor: The Dark World is probably the biggest waste of time you can get in that universe without me not giving a crap.
Yeah, it is pretty... I mean, I think it's good, but yeah, it just kind of fell flat. That's not really the topic, though. We shouldn't get too much into it.
Yeah, guys, remember, we're talking about Iron Man 3.
So because I'm not as terribly enthused by the whole MCU universe, it could have also soured my expectations too.
Okay, that's fair. So
I mean, like, okay. I don't think that the Mandarin Twist is the worst thing ever. Unlike, I know that there's one G1 on Screw Attack, and I do like him. He's a great guy, but he absolutely hated Iron Man 3. And he actually said that I'm done with superhero movies until they make better ones.
Sorry, that's just such a silly... Look, if I'm not giving up superhero movies and I had to sit through Man of Steel, if Man of Steel cannot make me stop watching superhero movies, nothing can.
Yeah,
well,
seriously.
He's also a huge fan of Shane Black, so that's why it drew him there. and he felt really let down. I mean, like, look, I don't hate Iron Man 3 like that. I think it's an okay movie. There are a lot of parts about it that I really do love. That final scene at the end is probably one of the best fight scenes in any Marvel movie.
Larry agrees with you. Larry talks about it quite a bit.
What am I telling you?
Like you're going up against the train battle from Spider-Man 2, and you're going up against the fight scene in New York from the Avengers.
Yeah, I think it succeeded
still have
in being
a
up there.
great battle scene in Iron Man 3.
Mm-hmm.
So,
oh yeah.
Can I kind of shift the conversation a little?
Sure.
Yeah, let's do
So, we're talking about whether or not the Mandarin... Because, okay, it's really hard to debate if the Mandarin works.
Right.
Because it's very... Like, it's very specific, and people, of course, if you have different expectations, it's hard to gauge. So what if instead we ask, is it important at all for the movie? So let's talk about the movie. Like you said, one of the G1s on Secure Attack hates Iron Man 3. Was it mostly because of the Mandarin twist?
No.
Okay, well,
He's
a lot
actually
of
had
people...
a vendetta against Marvel movies for a while now.
Why? Anyway, so I've seen a lot of people hate Iron Man 3 because the Mandarin twist alone. Like, that's it.
So his is not about the Mandarin twist.
Okay, well, I'm just bringing theoretical.
Is because he thinks that, well, it actually was a 3-point argument. One of them being that it feels inconsequential, and he said if you try and argue that, don't deny it. It's Marvel. Nothing in that continuity makes sense. These are not my words. These are his words.
They make complete sense.
Secondly, a lot of the wit that Shane Black, according to him, was famous for in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is absent in Iron Man 3.
Well, that's... I'm not going to talk. I like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, so I know what that comment's about, but I'm not going to talk. I'm done.
And thirdly, he's tired of superhero movies that set up a premise and don't follow through on them.
But what if they can follow through on something better? Kaboom.
So I didn't bother trying to debate with him because I know that every time I argue with him, he gets frustrated. And it's not worth it. I get frustrated myself too. Like I said, I'm not the best live debater, but these were the 3 points that he had about the movie that he didn't like.
Okay, so a lot of people don't like it, Iron Man, just because Mandarin. Like, that's the only reason they list.
That's a dumb reason to.
Right. So
there are other problems with the movie.
Let's argue let's argue how important is the Mandarin to the movie. And honestly, I would like to ask, what's the conflict of Iron Man 3? Larry and Whitley both answer. What would you say the conflict of Iron Man 3 is? The central conflict.
The central conflict. I have to think about that one a little bit.
To me, the central conflict would be Tony and his struggles to maintain his Iron Man dumb. There's not much of a better word of his being Iron Man. That would be the central conflict. It's
kind of his own. It's a very it sounds weird, but Iron Man 3 is a surprisingly existential movie.
Yeah, it is the
sense.
Most
because
it is the most
Avengers.
character study.
You're following Avengers, where this is just a normal guy. I mean, yes, he's a billionaire playboy. Excuse me, genius billionaire playboy philanthropist.
There you go.
But he is just a guy. Like, he doesn't have powers. He's not a super soldier. He had to face off against these aliens. He came in contact. He saw the Hulk. Like, that must have been terrifying. And he saw a god. You know, Thor was flying around and stuff. So
yeah, not to mention he almost died.
Oh yeah, he almost died. Like, he accepted his death, went into the edge of space, saw an atomic bomb blow up, accepted his death, and somehow made it out. So this is very scarring. So that's why I love Iron Man 3 so much, because it's so rare that a movie takes advantage of its predecessor's setup so well. And so here's the question. Does it matter if the Mandarin was big scary guy with magic rings? Or if he's just an actor and the real villain is fire-breathing, glowy guy from Memento? Does that actually matter? Because I think people do get upset about the Mandarin twist, and that's harder to debate, but I think it's much easier, and I feel much more confident in debating that it really isn't that important thematically. It's all about Tony's own struggle.
So if they'd focused on that more, I would have been happier. Like,
see,
the whole element of Tony having the war angst or the PTSD.
Yeah, kind of. That is what he was going through.
I think they only touched on it a few times, and then at the end they kind of dropped it.
I think
There was that scene where he had the dream where he almost strangles Pepper in his sleep.
Well, yeah. Well, with the suit almost kills her.
Yeah, he mentions how he can't sleep
Yeah.
at night. There was that scene in the restaurant where the girl asks him about New York and he breaks the crayon.
Yeah. Which I think was a great sequence.
And then there was the scene where he's with that boy, and
he's
the boy's
freaking
like,
out.
"Are you having flashbacks to New York again?" He's like, "Okay, kid, you shouldn't have brought that up. Now
So-
I'm having them."
Here's why I think the Mandarin works better. Because,
Okay.
like, I think they know what they were doing. The Mandarin is kind of, at least from what I've heard, Iron Man's biggest villain. Like, it's Batman Joker, it's Superman Lex Luthor, it's Spider-Man, I guess, Doc Ock?
The Green Goblin.
Really? Oh, well.
Yeah, Green Goblin.
Okay, Green Goblin. Anyway, like they're one of, they're always the team going up. They're the big pair, arch nemesis, all that. And so
Really?
putting him in the third, it's like, okay, after Avengers, he fought off this alien invasion. He's trying to restore his like normality and his own self-worth when he's compared to Thor, a literal god, and all these things. So putting him a superhuman, putting him up against a guy with magic rings would have just been throwing him back into that scenario. The point is that his normality was returned. It was a threat he could overcome on his own. He didn't need a god. He didn't need a super soldier. That's why I think it worked.
Now, I have a proposition. I'm going to just put it out there. I have a tendency to make suggestions, and I don't always know if they work.
Okay.
Here is my suggestion. We have the plot twist with the Mandarin. Killian is revealed with his motivations. He injects Trevor Slattery with his serum. Then we get a fight with the Mandarin and Tony where Slattery is the superpowered human. Would that be a better way of handling that?
No, because Slattery is not a violent person. He is a goofball and a drug addict, and he's hilarious. Like, he would not attack Tony.
Forget that. I'm just throwing ideas out there because
No,
I
it's fine.
feel
Like, if Trevor Slattery was different, like if he was an actor playing the Mandarin, but he wasn't so eccentric and so funny, and we all know what Trevor Slattery is like. If he was more kind of a dead serious, he might have some psychological problems. Like, he could become a villain, and then they gave him the powers. I'd be all for that. I don't know if it would necessarily work better. It would appease the fans more for sure. So if they made it so Killian wasn't powered and they were just developing this, and he finally got like his final version and he was more powerful than any henchman, and so that was like the birth of the Mandarin, maybe that would have made people less against it. And that would have kept the theme intact that Tony was able to fight his own battle. But at the same time, if everything is kind of the same except the fans are happier, I'd rather be happier with the twist. Like, I always go back to the twist. I like how they did a twist on us in the 7th Marvel movie. So, sure, fans wouldn't be as upset if we gave them a superpowered actor that was originally pretending to be the Mandarin but now is, but I'd rather have the twist.
Okay, I guess that's fair. I mean, like, look, I do see where you're coming from. I do think that writing off Iron Man 3 just because of a silly twist is a bad reason to do something.
Yeah, there are very few movies that are twists.
I'm not the kind of person who looks at movies like a jigsaw puzzle where every single piece doesn't fit perfectly. I'm going to throw the jigsaw puzzle in the air and yell F
it's
it
always
and leave the
better
room
if
erased.
stuff fits, but it's not required.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I probably wouldn't even be like bringing it up at all if the same argument were not brought up in defense of it. The argument I keep hearing is that the Mandarin is boring, you're crazy, there's no reason to hate this twist, you're just overreacting. And I think it kind of does a disservice to people who liked the movie but didn't like the twist because they got a villain in Killian who wasn't as interesting as Slattery could have been.
Sure, I guess so. But the character of Slattery is more interesting than the character of the Mandarin, in my opinion. Like, the way they were setting up the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, I think Slattery's more interesting. He's more fun to watch. Yeah, honestly, that's what I would... that would be my counter. that Slattery was a better trade-off than the Mandarin in terms of character interest.
But here's the question: was Killian a better trade-off?
No, not like as the villain, but at the same time, like I said, it allows Tony to win on his own, right? Like it's
actually he doesn't win on his own. Pepper comes and defeats Killian. Remember?
Yeah, that's actually kind of a piece of it. But what I mean is that it was a formidable foe, but it was grounded in his world. So it was kind of a return to his world of helping people and fighting his own battles after such a giant mess that happened in the Avengers.
Right.
So even if Pepper did do the final blow, which is an awesome scene, by the way, yeah, I wouldn't say that it removes the kind of thematic payoff. I think it's fine that she came in.
Uh-huh. I guess that's really all I would have to say on that one. I mean, my only close out point that I would make is that to anybody who thinks that people are just being ridiculous by this, no, it's not. That's not the case. It's a lot more complicated than the defenders of the Mandarin are making out to be, and just like a lot of other problems that I take issue with, you got to look at both sides before you make a conclusion.
Right, and I'm not like that's the thing. I really like the twist a lot, so I'm not going to just shrug off people who really dislike it. Like you got to be fair on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So yeah, the people are saying, "Oh, you're just being silly. There's no reason." It's like, well, I don't agree with the reasons. There are reasons, and I will debate those reasons. Like I don't want to shrug off anyone who thinks the Mandarin Twist is terrible. I just want to explain why I think it works.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think if I
still enjoyed Iron Man 3 as a popcorn movie.
Sure.
As far as
I think
concerned,
it was.
I can say what I want about the MCU movies, but I still enjoy them as popcorn movies. They still work as individual popcorn movies.
I think a lot of times they hit on stuff that's more than the average popcorn movie, especially Iron Man 3.
That's probably why, because I have to think a little bit too, and I like doing that.
Yeah, but I mean, like comparing it to like Transformers, that's so popcorn movie, and it doesn't touch on anything. So maybe that's why people are so passionate about it. No one's freaking out about Transformer twists. Like, what? Sentinel Prime was a bad guy? Oh, that's such against the character. Stuff like that. Because it doesn't actually matter. But maybe because
they're based on toys that weren't nearly as dark as the movies they're making them.
That's also true. But yeah, maybe it's because there is more to these Marvel movies than you would expect. It lets people get more into it. So that's why people are upset at the Mandarin.
Okay, and I still hold that Iron Man, even with all of its problems, Iron Man 3 is still a much better superhero movie than a lot of other, even superhero movies that are coming out lately. I do want to point out to everybody else, my litmus test is actually, it turned out to be a lot more sound than I originally thought it was going to be. You can try out on anything.
Yeah, actually, that is good, because yeah, I can think of a lot of twists that both work. Like Usual Suspects fits both.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah. It does.
Does it?
Oh, good. I didn't spoil it for Whitley. Good.
I've seen it.
Just saying that there's
I wasn't in love with the movie, but the twist itself was brilliant.
Oh, I am. I love that movie. Probably just because of the twist. But anyway, Larry, why don't you close us out?
All right, I shall do that. Well, first off, Whitley, it was a pleasure having you on the show.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I didn't freak out. I thought I was going to freak out and go like berserk.
No, we're good. No, leave that to Max and I. We'll freak out at each other. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Next CinemaTalk Debate.
Yeah, as
it's
we're
gonna
recording
go down.
this, we're kind of freaking out at each other.
Yeah, it's gonna go down.
Yes, it is.
But anyway, that was the first ever CinemaTalk Debate. I hope you all liked it. We will definitely try to have as many topical ones as we can. A debate is not always topical. But this one happened to be because we discussed characters last time, so it was good to kind of have a little debate on this character today. If you have any suggestions for CinemaTalk Debates, as long as it's topical, we'll take it. And we are open to any suggestion, believe me.
And can I hint at the next episode really quick?
Yeah.
I think we decided related to this, kind of like a nice little transition, next time I'll be hosting, which will be fun. We will be doing movie twists in general, like what are our favorite twists and stuff like that.
All right, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Movie twists next time on Cinema Talk, but that next time will not be for a while. So, in that regard, I feel it's time to sign out. So, thank you guys for watching. Again, remember to go to rulethirds.com. We are we just had, by the time this goes up, we just had our 10 out of 10 days of content wrap up. It was a great spree of content, and all of that content is currently available on Rule Thirds. It's gonna be awesome. So, until next time, my name is Larry.
I'm Sean.
I'm Whitley.
And thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys next time. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.